and welcome to another weekly update. I hope you're doing well. So I'm back from my travels, back in the study, and ready for another weekly update. And today, I think rather than just cover the news like we normally do, we can do something a little bit different because this is the week of Microsoft Ignite. It starts tomorrow. And so because of that, I think probably a better thing to do is to go through the sessions that I'm picking to pay real attention to this Ignite. Now, I'm going to caveat this slightly. So this happens every year. I go through the session catalog and pick out some interesting sessions that I think are good, but that has to be done in a way. It's good to do it ahead of time. Don't get me wrong. Like, it is good to plan how you consume session content because you can't watch it all. It's great that so much is on demand and available after the fact. So you go through and I've picked out 5 sessions I want to talk through, and that's kind of a mix of stuff that is super focused on Teams development platform and the Microsoft 365 development platform, and then some other stuff that's just a little bit tangential, but I think they'll be really good sessions. However, there's always stuff that gets announced and that hits the session catalog once Ignite starts. The reason for that is that they don't like to put too much detail into some of those sessions, so they hold them back and they don't publish them until some of the big announcements they want to make. Now, quite how many of those sessions depends on how much announcements they're going to make, so all of that is a bit of an unknown. Once we get the keynote tomorrow, such as keynote, it's always worth going back into the session catalog. But I'm recording this on the Monday, and so these are the 6 sessions that I think are kind of interesting right now. And then we can come back next week and review if there were any additional ones that added, extra value on top based on the announcements. All right, so let's get into these sessions that are my picks for this Ignite 2024. Okay, the first one, I'm not putting the keynote in, such as keynote. That's kind of required watching, honestly. But I am going to put in this one, which is also a keynote session, really. It's the kind of Microsoft 365 keynote. So it's got people in it like Jeff Teeper, like Nicole Hertzovitz, Ryan Cunningham, Stephen Kramer-Tillin, and David Martin. David Martin is non-Microsoft, so he'll be there. He's from Unilever, and so he'll be giving kind of a, how Unilever are using Microsoft 365 kind of a pitch. So this is a good one. This is the overview, really, around Microsoft 365. Mostly it's going to be Copilot and Copilot Studio stuff. But it's going to be interesting to see how they pitch some of the new agent stuff. Really going into Ignite, it feels like the theme here for developers is around agents and Copilot agents. And that's the real big thing and the real big announcement. And kind of quite a lot of the session content I'm going to focus on is around agents. We've talked about agents on here before. So none of this is a surprise. I think it's just doubling down on stuff that's already been announced. So that's definitely the first one. That's the nice kind of overview, not super technical. It's the high level kind of what's going on. Then I want to jump to this one, which is the Developer's Guide to Building Your Own Agents. This is going to be semi-technical, I think, maybe even fully technical. There's going to be demos, I imagine. There's going to be code, looking at the people that are in it. So Jeremy Thake kind of heads up this whole Microsoft 365 development experiences thing. I think I'm sorry, Jeremy, if that's not quite right, but and Sebastian Levitt does a fantastic job with demos on all of this stuff. So this is going to be really good to see kind of what you can do. This is going to be more kind of pro code stuff. So it's going to be SDKs, it's going to be tooling, it's going to be Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code to use Copilot agents. It's going to be building new Copilot agents, using the manifest that we've been talking about, using the new capabilities that we've been talking about, publishing them and then using them inside Copilot. There'll be a bit on Microsoft Graph apparently. So that's going to be a good one to watch for sure. And definitely that's going to be the meat and veg, if you like, of what I think a lot of developers are going to get out of Ignite this year. Next one, kind of related. So this is extending Microsoft 365 Copilot with Copilot agents and best practices for doing that. So this is a good one. This is kind of, again, maybe slightly less technical. It's about using the Copilot Studio Agent Builder. So it's going to be slightly more low code. This is good, even if you're a pro developer, it's good to understand what is possible in the low code world so that you're not reinventing the wheel. You know, you don't go and try and build something that's very, very easy to build in Copilot Studio. Save your efforts for the things that you can't build in Copilot Studio. So it's worth understanding what's in that world. And if you are a low coder, this is a good session for you, I think, to understand, how organizations are using it, and what else is going on. Again, this has got a non-Microsoft person in it as well, so they'll be touching on how KPMG in this case are using Copilot Studio, what they're doing with agents. So it's probably going to be slightly less, like I say, slightly less technical, but maybe kind of an interesting overview on best practice and sort of things to do. So those are kind of big ones, and that's where I would go, I think, for the big kind of like, okay, bring me up to date as a developer in this space. What's happening now? There might be other things happening for developers here. Ignite's a big conference. It's not Build, which is the developer focused conference. It's Ignite, which tends to be a little bit more IT pro, although to be honest, like the last couple of years, it's all got a bit sort of fluid. But I think those are the kind of biggies in this space that I would watch out for. Might have missed some, in which case I apologize. Let me know. There's two others I kind of want to cover as well because they are tangentially related. So the first one is discovering GitHub Copilot and that sort of potential for doing that in Visual Studio. So I think even just last week or the week before, we were talking about new capabilities for GitHub Copilot into Visual Studio. I imagine we'll see some of that in this session. But this is a good one. Like it's worth looking at for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's a good 45 minutes long, so I hope they cover more than just that thing that got announced a couple of weeks ago. So I think that it'll be good for that. It's got Scott Hanselman in it, so that means it will be an engaging session. It will be a useful and interesting session. There will be code and there will be demos. So as a professional developer, this is a session that's worth watching just for ideas. So just for how you can do your job better. So assuming you live in Visual Studio, or you spend time in Visual Studio, even if you're not actually building copilots today, if you're not building agents or anything like that, you're just doing run-of-the-mill, normal development, I think it's still worth looking at this because obviously GitHub Copilot can help you do that development, and you might be using GitHub Copilot today, and that's great. Are you using GitHub Copilot today in the most efficient way? Are you taking full advantage of all the things it can do? I'm pretty sure I'm not. So for that reason, I'm going to be looking at this session as well, just to pick up new ideas and new ways of using GitHub Copilot. So that's the reason this one is on my list. And then the last one that's on my list is around responsible AI. So I'll be honest, I mostly chose this for the speakers than for the content, but that's quite good because I think I probably should know this content, and having great speakers deliver it actually forces me to gen up on the content, and maybe that's what they were thinking. Maybe they're kind of like, developers are not going to be super into responsible AI. How do we get them into kind of paying attention to it? Let's put two really top-notch speakers in, Scott Hanselman and Mark Russinovich, together. They make a great presentation team as well. So much knowledge in those two brains as well. So I think it'd be really good to a really good session there to cover, talking all about the things that can go wrong with AI, which I think we all need to have in the back of our mind. And is a nice counter sometimes to some of the wild enthusiasm that goes alongside generative AI sometimes. All right, so a little bit of a run through 5 different sessions that I think are quite interesting this year and worth keeping an eye on at Ignite. Not going to be at Ignite in person, but I don't think that really matters. It's all going to be online and recorded, so I'm going to skip this year. And so let me know what you think. Let me know if there's sessions that you've seen that you think I might be interested in, because that's really, really helpful, because I've only had my look through the session catalog, and I might well have missed stuff. And if you're at Ignite and you see stuff that you think is interesting, do let me know as well. And I'll be back in a week's time to talk through anything that we learned that we didn't cover. But in the meantime, have a great one. Have a great week. Enjoy Ignite if you're there. Try and get some sessions in if you're not, when they come out on the catch-ups. And I'll speak to you next time.